Hello there, welcome to Bros.Gaming. My name is Brandon. Welcome to the second episode of our very first Dungeons & Dragons campaign. In these episodes, Ethan and I will be retelling our campaign sessions in a story format from the perspective of our characters and us as players as we experience the story. I just want to quickly apologise for the delay of this episode. These videos do take a considerable amount of time to make, but we sincerely appreciate the patience you have and the love you've given to the very first episode. The very first episode of this campaign series is the most viewed video on our channel, and we have your support to thank for that. Remember, the biggest way to show your continued support of these videos is by liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. But with all that out of the way, let's continue our story of Tyrant, a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. Previously on Tyrant. In the Downlands, a group of strangers were tasked by the people of Littledale to retrieve the town's gold from bandits that were hiding in a cave in a nearby mountain. The members of our group are Keth, a half-orc barbarian, Mystic Rivers, the tiefling druid, Elora, the half-elf bard, Artem, the human ranger, Ourea, the dwarven cleric, and Tree, the dragonborn druid. Prior to leaving the town, the adventurers were given magical items by a woman named Darcy. One of these items included a bag of holding, which unbeknownst to the group of adventurers was cursed and contained an evil creature within, known as the Bagman. This Bagman killed the adventurers' town guard escort, Seraleah, and in her last moments, she revealed her loyalty to the Dragon Queen, an enemy to the crown, and she threw away a magical amulet before being dragged into the bag of holding by the monster. Clearing out the bandits at the cave, leaving a single survivor for answers, the group found a child imprisoned in a cage, and a stone door with a keyhole that looked like the amulet could fit into. The group frees a child and they decide to see what's behind the door, despite the warning given to them by the head of the Littledale guard, Winton, to not open it. They opened the door with Seraleah's necklace and found monstrosities inside. They found a skeletal figure inside, accompanied by a monstrous ball of flesh wreathed in tentacles, known as Mother. Unchallenged by the adventurers, the two figures left the cave to unleash untold destruction on the people of Littledale and beyond. Tree returned from the outside of the cave with the child, wondering what it was they just saw. And in a moment of guilt and anger, Artem wakes up the unconscious bandit to interrogate them about the door and the monsters inside, with Keth following close behind. The sole surviving raider of their encounter, named Beth, reveals that they knew nothing about what was behind the door, as they had no means of opening it. The bandits were simply using the cave as a means of convenience, as the cave and the mountain is closely located to nearby towns in the Downlands. Artem realized his suspicions about the bandits was entirely wrong, and that they were simply raiders and nothing more. The group is unsure of what to do with Beth, but Rivers delivers an ultimatum to the raider. The group will let Beth live if she decides to corroborate that Seraleah opened the door and not the adventurers. Wanting to live, Beth agrees and is tied up by the group. The adventurers recover the gold stolen by the bandits and load up their pack mules and leave the cave, heading back to Littledale. The group finds themselves back among the rocky mountains leading to Littledale, and they set up camp. The pain inflicted on Artem seeing the child seems to have gone away, and he decides to approach her, sitting down on her level. Hello. My name is Artem. What's your name? Bessie. Bessie. That's a beautiful name. Are you cold, Bessie? Bessie nods shyly, and Artem takes off his duster coat, giving it to her to wear. Tree also makes their way over to her and sits with her, using their wings to provide additional shelter from the cold mountain air. Artem tells Bessie that she is safe with them and promises to return her to her home and to her parents. He asks her if she's from Littledale, and she informs him that she isn't and that her home is far west of the camp. She also reveals, without saying it, that she no longer has parents because of the kidnapping by the bandits. Beth admits that Bessie is no one in particular and that they only took her for ransom, as abducting children provides them more money than robbing towns does. When questioned further, Beth admits that this isn't the first child that they've taken. Keth, hearing this, rages, gripping his axe, and curses, "Why haven't we killed her yet?" He swiftly moves across the campsite and goes to recklessly attack Beth. Artem and Tree cover Bessie's eyes as Keth brutally cleaves Beth in two. And with that, the final raider was dead. Keth looks at Artem and Tree. He says to them, "You shouldn't hide her from this. Seeing some bloodshed will make her stronger." Bessie, however, still seems frightened, and Tree comforts her. Artem sits in silence as the stars begin to dance overhead. He continues whittling away at some wood that he's been working on for the past few days. Artem reflects on the horror that they've unknowingly unleashed on the people of Littledale, and wonders if they'll be able to reach the town in time to stop the creature. What he is certain of is that the group of adventurers may not survive the next day, whether it be the monsters or the people of Littledale. After all, they are now traitors to the kingdom. He looks to the strangers that he's now surrounded by that he barely knows. He pulls out his bottle of mead that was given to him a few days ago, and he shares to the group his uncertainty of what will lay ahead, and grimly remarks that he doesn't want to die among strangers. But he has a proposal. Artem asks the group if they want to play a game of Never Have I Ever, a game he hasn't played in years. He passes the full bottle of mead to Keth, who takes it happily and starts to speak before the game even begins. Artem begins the game by saying, "Never have I ever fought a bagman," to get everybody to take a drink. Keth says, "Never have I ever fought a bear," and proceeds to drink. The group is both astounded and perplexed, and asks more about this event. He boasts how he fought a bear with his bare hands, but the group asks, well, how big was the bear? He admits that the bear was only a cub, but he was also a cub too, so it was a fair fight. Tree says, "Never have I ever been raised by an old woman," and proceeds to drink. Artem smirks that everyone seems to be using these questions just as a way to drink, but he is happy that he's now learning more about the people around him. Artem looks to Rivers, who seems too composed for a nomad, and Ourea, who wears fine clothes and armor, and says, "Never have I ever met royalty." To his surprise, neither of them drink. Elora says, "Never have I ever stolen a head," jokingly, as she noticed Tree stealing one of the bandits' heads when no one was looking. Tree drinks, but is also joined by Keth and Rivers. With warm mead in their bellies and the roast of the fire keeping them warm, the adventurers find themselves resting with ease for the moment. Artem prepares to take the first watch as Elora begins to dream. Elora finds herself in her childhood bedroom, being tucked in by her mother. She is comforted by her and is eager to hear another one of her tales. As she tucks Elora in, Elora's mother speaks. "A lady fair with gentle grace, her smile a beacon bright, but hidden behind her face lie secrets cloaked in night. Trust not the charm she displays, nor kindness she imparts, for veiled within her friendly gaze are shadows in her heart." We move over to Rivers, who doesn't seem to be having as a restful sleep as Elora.
I remember crying. I remember being stuck in a dark, smelly room with high ceilings. For the friends I used to have, all I have now are rats and bones. I cry, I starve, till I sleep. I was woken by an old elf carrying a pitcher of water in his left hand and a small flame in his right. He knelt and offered me the drink. I was so excited to have it, but too weak to show. He looked me up and down and told me I reminded him of my mother. The spitting image, he said, smirking. He set the picture on the floor and told me if I took his hand, he'd save me from being forgotten. When I took his hand, I felt a warmth in my chest swell like I was back with family. I fell asleep instantly. I dreamt I was walking with him and Mama through an icy marsh, our feet crunching through thin ice into frigid water. Then we were walking through a frozen waste, and we stopped. Mama knelt in front of me, tears in her eyes, looking at my horns. She reached out and touched my face, her mouth open to say something. I woke up again and the brightness just about blinded me, too much for my broken eye. It was intensely hot. The elf was gone, Mama nowhere to be seen. There was a goat, though, staring at me as if it was thinking. She was chewing a dead-looking reed. Somehow it had found among the sea of sand. I heard a voice commanding me to follow, and the goat started to walk away, so I followed. As night fell, I saw lights and tents silhouetted against the dusk. People rushed out to take me and the goat. An old man with them sat me by a tent and spoke to me in an accent I could barely understand. He said, "You've brought us food, as our mutual friend promised. You'll learn to live as we do, and we'll look after you until the appropriate time." The other men, speaking a tongue I could not yet understand, slew the goat. My eyes swelled with tears, and I was inconsolable. I cried for hours and hours. I don't know what your name used to be, but to us, you will be Rivers.
Artem sees River's discomfort in her sleep and wakes her up. He lets her know that it's her turn to take watch and puts himself to rest. We move over to Tree as they sleep. Tree dreams of a time in their childhood when they did not have wings. Tree sits in a log reading a book, detailing the complex history of dragons and Dragonborn in Faerun. The book talks about how Dragonborn used to be enslaved to an ancient red dragon known as Xaxes. Eventually, the Dragonborn revolted against Xaxes the Slaver, and Xaxes fled to the Austrian mountains. Some legends say that Xaxes eventually perished in these mountains, while others say that Xaxes is dormant and bides his time until he will return. An older Dragonborn comes up to Tree, amused that they're stuck in their dragon history books again, and urges them to return to their studies. We move over to Artem, who is now fallen asleep. Artem jolts awake, feeling the sun on his face. The sun was shining, and he smelt the familiar aromas of home. He looks and sees his old childhood friend, Mr. Hat, standing in a clearing, holding a rabbit. Mr. Hat innocently asks, "Would you like to play tag?" Artem is overcome with mixed memories of his childhood and the past few days. He can only smile, his eyes tearing up, and says yes to his childhood friend. Mr. Hat began to flee, and Artem uses Misty Step, a spell taught to him by Mr. Hat, and he catches up with him. Mr. Hat, in retaliation, hexes Artem and flees into the woods. Artem gives chase, and despite being hexed, he pushes through and catches up to Mr. Hat. Artem reminds Mr. Hat of their rules that we never hex friends. "You're not a very good friend, Artem. You shut me out." "I haven't shut you out. You left me, remember?" Artem notices Mr. Hat's clawed hand moving to the rabbit's neck. "If you continue to shut me out, bad things will happen," Mr. Hat says as he rips the rabbit's head off its body. Mr. Hat disappears from Artem. Artem then kneels and proceeds to dig a hole to bury the rabbit, just like he's had to do with all the other animals that Mr. Hat has hurt. We move over to Keth, who is starting to turn in his sleep. In his sleep, Keth is climbing a snowy mountain, wind whipping in his face as he returns to his village. Keth feels a surge of pride, knowing he has completed his rite of passage for his tribe. As he nears the top of the mountain, the usual hustle and bustle of the village is unusually quiet. When he makes it to the top of the cliff that he's been climbing, he finds his village in utter ruin. The village reeks of sulfuric metal, and where huts once stood, now displays the carcasses of homes and memories. Keth with haste returns to his home, where he finds the broken and butchered bodies of his mother and father. He falls to his knees, saying to himself that he should have been there. He wakes up with a jolt as Rivers lets him know that it's his turn to take watch. We finally move over to Ourea, who has soundly slept throughout the night. Since the cave, Ourea has kept to herself and remaining silent, looking to her goddess for guidance. And her goddess, Seraleah, the goddess of truth and forgiveness, appears to her in her dream. Seraleah whispers something unintelligible to Ourea, and she is teleported somewhere else. Ourea is now in a forest clearing, with the light of the sun oddly scattering among the multicolored flora. Ourea herself was emitting a radiance of light, but she stood well over the trees in the forest floor. She was not herself. She was looking through the eyes of a dragon, a divine dragon protecting the Feywild. Ourea heard a cracking in the sky as a massive and ancient red dragon approached. Looking through the eyes of this divine dragon, she knew this ancient dragon's name. Xaxes. Xaxes dwarfed the divine dragon in size, and with a booming voice commanded the golden dragon to submit to his rule. Ourea could feel the divine dragon's reluctance and disgust towards this ancient red dragon as Xaxes' voice boomed again.
I will not ask again. Disobey me again, and I won't hesitate to burn the Feywild to the ground.
And in this moment of terror and confusion, Ourea awoke with her goddess's words ringing in her ears. The words formed a name: Seraphax, the Golden Dragon. The adventurers made their way through the woods and back onto the main road, getting ever closer to Littledale. The group spots a lone figure in the distance ahead on the road. Rivers creeps along the woods alongside the road, keeping pace with Elora as she makes her way to the mysterious figure. The figure is an eccentric salesman with many pouches and a bag on his back. The salesman asked Elora if she was interested in purchasing some magic mushrooms. Perplexed by his offer, the man further explains that the coloured mushrooms he sells contains magical properties. In D&D terms, this is what the magical mushrooms do. The Crimson Blight Cap gives a person an additional 2d6 damage on their attacks, but takes away 2 hit points each turn. The Azure Blink Cap mimics the Blink spell, but randomly teleports a person at the end of every turn. The Amber Rage Cap gives a person a +5 to hit a target with an attack, but reduces 5 off saving throws until long rest. Then the Mushroom Man offers these mushrooms at 300 gold pieces each. As Elora considers this, she notices 4 scrolls of resurrection in the man's backpack. The Mushroom Man declines to sell these and is only interested in being a mushroom dealer. Elora gives a signal to Rivers to steal the scrolls from the Mushroom Man's back as she distracts. Elora immediately grabs the Mushroom Man as Rivers steals the bag of scrolls from his back. And initiative is rolled. The Mushroom Man manages to throw Elora off him and starts to cast Blight on the adventurers. As the remaining adventurers run up to catch up to Elora and Rivers, the Mushroom Man incapacitates the girls using necrotic and poisonous spell work. Having closed the distance, Keth and Artem immediately start attacking the Mushroom Man, with Tree and Ourea moving in to heal Elora and Rivers. After taking a few strikes from Artem and Keth, Keth brings down his great axe and cleaves the Mushroom Man in two. Standing over his body, Keth slings his axe, saying, "I've needed to hit something this morning." The group, having licked their wounds, finally arrive to the outskirts of Littledale. Before entering the town, Artem kneels down in front of Bessie. He says to her that they may be heading into danger, but they'll do everything they can to keep her safe. Artem reveals that he's been carving a wood whistle and gives it to Bessie. He tells her that he wants her to stay back, but if she finds herself in any danger, she should blow the whistle and they'll come and help her. Bessie was appreciative of the gift and seemed to be put at ease, holding the whistle close. He helps Bessie onto Tree's back as Tree piggybacks her on their wings. As they begin to approach the town, they are approached by a woman. A woman with uncanny similarity to Seraleah. Rivers, however, recognizes her as Seraleah's sister, Amber. Amber demands the adventurers to tell her where her sister is, revealing she knows that her sister went with them to the mountains. Elora bluntly tells Amber that she's dead and was killed in the skirmish with the bandits. Amber, distraught and angry about hearing her sister's death, proclaims that she'll find her herself and returns to her home to get supplies to make her way to the mountains. The adventurers looked about and saw the town was normal, seemingly okay. They thought to themselves that maybe they had gotten ahead of the monstrosities, or maybe the monstrosities simply went elsewhere. Having their immediate threat put at ease, their minds returned to the horror of the Bagman and the brutal killing of Seraleah. No matter her intentions with the Dragon Queen, Seraleah had protected the adventurers, and the adventurers were nearly slaughtered by their gift from Darcy. And they decided they wanted answers. The group made their way to Darcy's home on the edge of town. Upon arriving, Darcy emerged from her home to greet the adventurers and ask them how their venture went. The group immediately questioned her about the bag of holding and the Bagman monster that was unleashed from it. Rivers whispered under her breath,
Who summoned the Bagman says what?
What? Darcy claimed to have no knowledge of the bag of holding's curse. Artem was suspicious as always, so I rolled for insight to see whether or not she was lying. Despite the high insight roll, Artem couldn't tell if Darcy was lying, but detected an uncanny energy from her. Darcy took notice of the child travelling with the adventurers and said that they could leave the child with her. Artem was quick to refuse her offer, saying that they were going to bring her back to her family. An unease and uncertainty grew over the rest of the group as Darcy became more insistent on looking after the child. Artem picked up Bessie and was steadfast about not giving her over to the stranger. Keth simply says to Darcy, "The heck says what?" What? Rivers went to take a step closer to Darcy, and Darcy cast a spell, putting Rivers to sleep. Darcy, growing impatient with the adventurers, shed her disguise and revealed her true form, a hag. The house behind her also disappeared, revealing a ruined and decayed home. She delivered an ultimatum to the adventurers: give over the child and be rewarded, or lose 50 years off of their lives. As the group ponders their decision, Artem passes the child to Tree and tells the hag that they will not lay their hands on Bessie. And we rolled for initiative. Rivers was unable to awaken from the spell as the group unleashed their attacks into the hag. Keth ran at the hag, cleaving into her, with Tree and Elora following closely behind. Artem misty stepped to the top of a nearby rock and let arrows fly. Despite taking heavy hits from the group, she was seemingly unfazed by their attacks. Artem hexed the hag and went to unleash another arrow when his hand started uncontrollably trembling again. Bessie was terrified of the hag and hid behind a nearby rock. Noticing this, the hag herself misty stepped away from the group and snatched up the vulnerable Bessie. Ourea grappled the hag, and the hag was forced to let go of Bessie. Hearing the slinging of spells and the swinging of swords, the head of the guard Winton arrived at the house. He saw the hag attempting to take the child, and he immediately jumped into the fray. As the group rushed in to keep the hag away from Bessie, the hag was able to throw Ourea off her. Taking the opportunity, the hag snatched Bessie, cackling as she did. She and the child teleported away. The group was in despair as Rivers awoke. Artem and Tree in particular were shell-shocked, unable to protect the child that they began to take care of. Winton asked the group what had happened here, in which Keth and Elora informed Winton that Darcy was a hag. Winton was shocked, as Darcy had lived in Littledale for many years without suspicion. As Rivers began to interject that Winton should have known, Winton asked the group what had happened on the mountainside, wondering what happened to Seraleah and whether or not they were able to retrieve the gold. The group revealed to Winton that Seraleah was loyal to the Dragon Queen and opened the door within the mountain. Winton believed the adventurers, but was in shock, unable to process a woman that he had known for years was secretly working for the enemy. Before Winton could press any further, the adventurers heard screams and shouts in the distance. With no time to talk, they ran further into the town, following the sounds of fear in the air. The adventurers arrived at the centre of town, beneath the stone tower of the arcane cannon. They find themselves upon the creatures that they had unleashed from the cave only a day prior. The skeletal figure reveals himself to the town as Malice, stating that he was once shunned by the people of Little Dale hundreds of years ago and was exiled to the mountains for raising this aberration in secret. He is here to enact vengeance upon the town and feed them to his mother. Ourea, listening to Malice and observing the octopus-like creature, makes a realization about their nature. As Malice continues to monologue, Ourea informs the adventurers that the creature is known as a deep spawn, an aberration that feeds on humanoids and then regurgitates their corpses as thralls. Rivers turns to the townspeople that she'd been living with for 6 months, urging them to fight with them and slay the monsters that seek to annihilate their town. But the townspeople are too frightened to join. An initiative is rolled. Winton charges in, engaging in brutal melee combat with Malice and the Deep Spawn. Elora sees an opportunity in the fight and casts hideous laughter on Malice, instantly incapacitating the creature, who falls to the ground in painful, horrifying laughter. It's this that finally arouses the townsfolk to join the fray. The townspeople, including River's old boss and the hostages from the bandit attack, are emboldened by the adventurers and join them in the fight. They swarm the monster, using whatever weapons they can find. Using bottles, mops, and rocks, the people of Littledale defend their home to the death. Mother, seeing her thrall and former father incapacitated, lashes out at the townspeople, killing several of the townsfolk, including the owner of the Littledale Inn. Keth utilizes the creature's distraction and continues to hack into Malice, who could not be disenchanted by Elara's spell. It was at this moment Amber emerged from her home. She was kitted up and looked as though she was about to enter the fight. However, she instead lit a firework, which shot off into the sky, emitting golden sparks. The fight was at a standstill for the briefest of moments, before the sky started to distort. It started to almost ripple, as if space and time was starting to tear apart when a creature started to emerge from the wormhole. It was a dragon. As the winged beast began to soar over Littledale, Elora screamed out to the villagers to flee. Ourea looked to the sky as the dragon started to come into view, and with horror she recognized it. It was Seraphax, the golden dragon. In a torrent of holy fire, Seraphax started to unleash its raging flames into the town, instantly incinerating many homes and people. As the screams of the people of Littledale started to carry in the wind, Keth smelt a familiar smell. A smell of metallic sulfur. As Seraphax made a pass on nearby homes, he could see the all too familiar streaks of black burn marks streaking across the town. This was the same dragon that destroyed Keth's home, wiped out his people, and murdered his parents. This was his quarry. This would be his vengeance. As the deep spawn redirected itself to the larger threat of the dragon, Artem made a dash for the tower. He made his way up through the tower, and towards the top he found a series of large blue glowing stones, in which he ascertained was ammunition for the cannon on top of the tower. He carried one to the top of the tower and loaded the arcane stone into the cannon. He lined up the cannon in the sights of the dragon, incinerating the town. He told himself he wouldn't let another town die because of him. As he was about to fire, his hand started trembling again, and the shot went wide, missing the dragon. Seeing the situation is dire on top of the tower, Rivers turns to Keth and tells him to get her to the top of the tower, and she then wild-shaped into a serpent. Keth, understanding her command, picks up the serpentine Rivers, twirls her, and tosses her to the top of the tower. As the arcane energy dissipates, Malice is able to shake off his enchantment and readies himself a spell to attack the distracted Keth. Elora, however, was quicker to the draw and drew her sword. She brought the sword to Malice's throat from behind and slit the creature's throat, destroying what undead life remained in the creature. With Malice now dead, only leaving the aberration standing, Ourea blesses Keth, Elora and Tree and moved into the tower. The force of the impact from landing on top of the tower was enough to knock Rivers back into her tiefling form. She moves to assist Artem in loading the cannon with a second arcane bullet. Artem once again lines up the cannon, aiming at the creature, burning Little Dale as if he was hunting a bird with his bow. The whispers return to his head, and his hands continue to tremble, and he misses his second shot at the winged beast. Seraphax makes a pass at the deep spawn, unleashing radiant fire upon it, nearly killing it, and nearly hitting Keth, Tree and Elora. Elora yells at Seraphax as it passes by. "Why are you doing this?" The dragon's voice booms across the sky in common, saying,
I have no choice.
and continues to rain down holy fire upon the town. Seraphax turns and begins to make a pass at the tower to destroy it and the cannon. Rivers loads the cannon and Artem aims the cannon at the dragon. He steadies his breath. His hands continue to shake. As he fires, he hears the word Dolor, and the arcane energy arcs towards the dragon and misses. Artem, seeing death with golden wings dive bombing towards the tower, turns to Rivers and tells her to run. Rivers, however, stays steadfast, not afraid of death, and loads up the cannon one more time. Beneath the tower, Keth stares up at his quarry and pulls out a rope. He ties it up and spins it like a lasso, lining it up as Seraphax gets closer and closer. As Seraphax is about to unleash another torrent of radiant fire, Keth tosses the rope and rolls a natural 20. The rope latches around Seraphax's snout and Keth is pulled into the sky to meet his enemy and saving his fellow adventurers in the process. Seraphax violently shook his head from side to side, trying to throw Keth off. Keth was unable to hold on for long and was tossed to the far side of town, narrowly avoiding death, landing in a hay bale. Some unknowable force must have been looking after him. As Seraphax turns his attention back towards the tower, Tree recalls their teachings and speaks to the dragon in Draconic, asking it what it wants. Seraphax pauses momentarily and issues a command in common for anyone in the tower to abandon it or perish. Artem, Rivers and Ourea are about to make their way out of the tower as Seraphax, beyond patience, unleashes his holy flames upon the tower. The flames ignite the tower and the crystals inside, detonating it in an immense, devastating explosion, sending Rivers, Artem and Ourea across the town square. Artem and Rivers stand up narrowly, avoiding most of the blast. However, they look to their dwarf companion, Ourea, who now lays dead beneath the radiant sky and burning homes of Little Dale. Seraphax roars and flies back to the portal, disappearing in uncanny magic as swiftly as they arrived. Rivers darts over to Ourea and pulls out one of the revived scrolls that they stole earlier. She enacts the incantation, and as the scroll dissipates, life is restored to Ourea. Artem looks to the aberration mother, who seems to be looking at the buildings now coated in radiant flames. The whispers return to his mind, and he moves to the aberration, speaking to it in a voice not his own. In deep speech, he tells the creature that Little Dale is no more, and that it has taken its revenge. He says that there is no need for it to kill any more townspeople, as most of the townspeople are now gone. In a mixture of deep speech and common, Mother replies that it is hungry, and that it has been starving for centuries. Elora joins Artem and encourages it to leave Little Dale. The aberration tells the pair that its hunger is not satisfied, but it'll allow them to live this time. Sensing that there is no longer food in Little Dale, the creature slithers away westward in search of more towns and thralls. As the creature leaves, Keth returns and looks upon the destruction of Little Dale. Little Dale too is now a carcass of memory and lies in the shadow of desolation, just like his village. He turns his attention to the home of Amber, one of the only homes barely touched by Seraphax's dragonfire. He storms to the house where he finds Amber just finishing packing a bag to flee. Before Amber can speak, Keth grabs her and drags her back into the burning town square. The familiar horror and smell of burned sulfuric metal permeates Keth's senses. A rage burns in him, unlike any rage that he's ever experienced before. This human, Amber, brought about the dragon that destroyed his home and allowed another village to burn. Keth's unbridled rage surged through his veins, and he began to grow to 10 feet in size, dragging Amber with him. He finds a broken post. From a hitching post, a balcony, he couldn't say. All he felt was the rage that burned hotter than the town surrounding him. He staked the post and brought Amber down upon it, impaling her as she gasped for air. In her last breath, all she could taste was blood and ash. The group stood in silence, overwhelmed by everything that occurred in the space of less than an hour. The hag, the loss of the child, the death of hundreds of souls, the dragon. They looked to each other, some in defeat, some in despair, and some with renewed purpose. As the other adventurers left Amber, Tree pulled out a knife and cut off one of Amber's pinkies, storing it in the bag of holding, and trailed after the group. The adventurers slowly made their way through the ruins of the town that once offered them refuge. Some for a night or two, some for 6 months. Rivers made her way into the bar that was once her home for a time. She sifted through the ash and embers, unmoved by the heat, and took a bottle of brandy and a long, dirty but now charred dish rag as mementos of her time in Little Dale. Keth and Elora also took the opportunity to collect booze that the town no longer needed, and the trio left what was once the Little Dale Inn. As the adventurers found themselves together again, they found themselves among the survivors of Little Dale on the edge of town. With less than 40 survivors, Winton suggested they venture south to the town of Merrydale, which is more fortified and can provide shelter to the now refugees of Little Dale. The adventurers were unanimous in deciding to escort the survivors to Merrydale and ready themselves for the exodus of Little Dale. Little Dale once stood for hundreds of years, a refuge for travellers coming in and out of this long-forgotten country. And with the extinction of Little Dale, this town too will likely be forgotten to time. But to the people of Little Dale and the group of adventurers, what won't be forgotten is the smell of blood and dragonfire.